sitting at a table with a group of friends, you're not arguing, you're not trying to dominate the conversation, you're mostly just listening and taking it all in your way. Then later that night, someone pulls you aside and says, you're actually kind of intimidating. It almost makes you laugh because you barely said 10 words all night. But if this sounds familiar, if you've noticed coworkers getting defensive before you even finish a sentence, or friends admitting they were nervous to talk to you at first, you might be wondering what you're doing wrong, case? The truth is, you're not doing anything wrong at all. Ispain. You're actually tapping into a very specific kind of psychological power called quiet intensity that most people simply aren't equipped to handle. 1, 2. Today, we're going to look at the 7 signs that you're more powerful than people realize, and why your presence might be acting as a mirror for everyone else's insecurities. 1, 3. The first sign is that you're comfortable with silence, and that seriously unnerves people. Most people treat a lull in conversation like a vacuum that has to be filled with anything, the weather, or weekend plans, whatever. 4. But when you don't scramble to fill that gap, it makes people squirm. There's actually research from the University of Groningen that found just 4 seconds of silence can make most people visibly uncomfortable. Their heart rate spikes and they feel judged because you aren't performing for their comfort. 40. When you're fine with the silence, they start hearing their own thoughts and feel exposed, which makes them think you're intense, when really they just can't control you with small talk. 4, 5. Have you also noticed that people tend to tell you things they don't tell anyone else? Sure, you aren't a therapist, but suddenly a stranger at a coffee shop is telling you about their divorce, or a coworker is confessing their biggest failures. Cheeks. This happens because you have what psychologist Carl Rogers called unconditional positive regard, that rare ability to listen without an agenda or the need to fix things fast. In a world where everyone is just waiting for their turn to speak, your full attention is magnetic. The catch is that after people spill their guts, they often pull away because being truly seen by someone like you can be more terrifying than being ignored. Another sign is when people tell you that you think too much. So, usually, this happens after you give a thoughtful answer to a simple question and they cut you off with, "Dude, it's just a movie." Tugs. But "you think too much" is really just a complaint in disguise. Social psychology shows that people prefer partners who match their own cognitive style. So when you process things more deeply, it becomes a mirror that makes them aware of their own shallowness. They want you to relax because your thinking reminds them that they aren't thinking enough. 3. You might also find that your absence completely changes the energy of a room. Receivers, you don't try to be the center of attention, but when you leave, people notice. 3. Research on group dynamics shows that even one quiet, thoughtful person changes how a group behaves. 7. People speak more carefully and act less petty just because you're there. 7. Ironically, you're usually the only person in the room who doesn't realize how much everyone else is adjusting their behavior just because you're present. Have you ever had someone get defensive even though you didn't accuse them of anything? You might make a neutral observation or ask a simple question, and suddenly the other person is over explaining or justifying their choices. 7, 8. This is because your attention has weight. 8. When you're truly observant, people feel like you might see things they want to keep hidden, and they get defensive to protect themselves from what they're afraid you've noticed. This links to the fact that you're usually more interested in understanding someone than being right. While most people treat a conversation like a debate they need to win, you're genuinely curious about their perspective. This is deeply unsettling to people who need to be right to feel secure. Clint. You've probably even lost friends over this. Not because you were mean, but because you wouldn't just blindly agree with them when they wanted validation. Finally, the biggest sign of this quiet power is that you see what everyone else wants to ignore. Ikurur. You notice the tension in the room or the contradiction in what someone just said. You aren't loud or aggressive. You're just real in a world that runs on performance. 10. People will call you intimidating or too intense, but what they really mean is that you make them uncomfortable with themselves. 20. This kind of power can feel lonely, especially when you see others connecting effortlessly over small talk while you're wondering if